like, by yourself? Because I did not want to ask for help. That's one thing I never did. I would never ask anybody for help besides my dad. That is the only man I grew up learning that you're allowed to ask for help is your father. Okay. And of course your mom, but she was gone. So I was never going to ask anybody else for anything. No matter who you are, I wasn't going to ask you for anything. And so I had to do it by myself. I have so many friends, so many family members, but I did not want them to know.
How come?
I was embarrassed of my own decisions because I made this decision, and I had to suffer the consequences. I've never quite been one to not suffer my consequences. When you say
suffer the consequences, what consequences did you suffer?
I made wrong decisions with staying in a relationship. I knew it was bad before I even got pregnant. And then when I got pregnant, it got even worse. And it got to the point where I had my daughter, and he was kicked out of the delivery room. And didn't see him again for, I don't know, maybe a month and a half. Yeah.
Wait. He was kicked out of the delivery room, so he let the hospital end your life?
I was paying the rent, okay? I thought I was paying the rent. The apartment wasn't in my name. But he was not, couldn't get a job or had issues with this. He'd have a job, then he'd get fired or something. Something happened. He was the kind where it was always somebody else. Okay. And so I was paying the rent out of school loan. I took out loans I know I couldn't pay back. But I was paying the rent, and then I came home one day, and it was an eviction notice on the door. And it was like a final eviction notice. So he had been hiding it from me. I had been paying the rent. He had been using the money trying to do something else to make more. And it wasn't working out for him. And so that's the night.
Instead of paying the rent,
he was using it to flip. And then that was the night I went into labor because I was breaking down a bed, moving furniture, and then my water broke. And so at the hospital, whatever, I said one thing. I said, I think you need to sell your truck, because he had a title to the truck. I said, I think you need to sell your truck. And then all hell broke loose, maybe like 3 hours after a C-section. And that's when the nurses came in and kicked him out, and he was no longer allowed in the hospital. And so came around time for me to leave, and the nurses worked with me. I got an extra 2 days, and then I had to call a cab to help. I could call friends. I could have called friends, I know, but I called a cab. This nurse that I was friends with at the hospital, she was so nice, gave me a car seat, and they gave me so many supplies. And they knew my situation. I didn't know what I was going to go home to. And so,
because at this point, the final eviction notice had been already.
Absolutely. Okay. And so the cab drops me off. All of our stuff was on the street. They scavenged everything, but they were nice enough to leave the baby clothes.
When
they left a lot of the baby
left
stuff.
Your stuff from the apartment had already been on the street. So you guys had already got kicked out.
Yes.
So you had no home.
I had no home.
From the hospital.
And so I moved whatever I could in my car at the time. Put everything in.
So you did have a car there?
At the apartment I did, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was the same car that I purchased with my mom's funds that I got from her.
Right.
So I put whatever I could in the back of the car, and then we went...
With the newborn.
And then people from the hospital told me about programs that I could, if I needed help or things like that. First, I feel like they gave me 2 months supplies of diapers. It was insane how much they gave me from the hospital.
So you had tons of diapers,
tons of diapers, tons of wipes. I mean, they were really trying to help
So in
me.
essence, you had nothing but the things that the hospital gave you, the things you got on the street,
and whatever I could
and your
find
newborn,
from my
no place, but the car,
and that was our home. So we went to the gas station and stayed there. And then we'd shift from the gas station to the Checkers.
So at the point that, let me just interrupt. The point that you got dropped off from the taxi. You got dropped off from the taxi, and then the you put everything in your car, At any point, did you think, let me call somebody to see if I could stay with them? And
No.
what was the relationship with your dad at that point, after you had the baby? Because you had no place to go.
I didn't want
So
anyone
what
to
was-
know. Only my dad was the one that I was going to ask for help. And it wasn't like he cut me off like zero contact. Like if I called him, he wouldn't answer. He might call me back 2 days later. How you doing? Blah, blah. Real
Right.
dry, and then get off the phone with me. And then it might take him like a week to return my phone call. And he didn't see my daughter
So he was
until
just really
she was
disappointed.
older. He was very disappointed. He was hurt. But I mean,
Because he expected, more after, especially after you've gone
After
through,
all that I've
even
done.
college and
all that
doing
he's
so
done,
well,
because I
and
mean he
everything that
worked
he's
so
done.
hard to make it for me to be comfortable.
Right.
He paid my rent.
So
he
at
paid
this
for
point,
books. He
when you
paid for all
found out you were
kinds of
pregnant, it was just kind of a okay.
stuff. Yeah, and so
So you didn't really want to call him. So you didn't call him that day
I
when
called
you
him.
got released from the
I
hospital.
called him to tell him what happened.
And what did he say?
He didn't return my call until like maybe 6 days later.
Oh,
He said he was working. He was on the road. And
so after you picked up your stuff from the side of the road, you went to the gas station. And then what happened from that point?
chilled at the gas station. Literally. Like, there's nothing I could really do. I drove around. I had a C-section, so it was like I couldn't really do as much as I wanted to. But I drove around to different, because I was a vet assistant in high school. And so I fabricated on a resume and said I was a vet tech. And so then I got a job as a vet tech. So I was just basically driving around trying to look at vet hospitals, which ones I had planned to call and apply to. And so that's what I did. I just made a list of the vet places I was going to call. Because the way that the vet world works, it's such a high turnover. They always need help. So it's like you can go in for an interview and get hired to work the next day.
Oh, wow.
It's like that. It's a very it's not that kind of field. It's you go in for an interview and you go to work the next day. Or maybe even the same day. Depends on when they need you.
Wow.
And so
Okay. So I mean, how did you eat? How did you wash?
Well, I still had a little bit of money. It was dwindling. And so Burger King had at the time they was running this crazy special, 20 nuggets for $1. And so I just rationed them out. And then they I was breastfeeding.
So when you say you ration out nuggets, what do you mean? In a full day? So in the morning,
I can't break it down. I would just eat however many. I'd be like, okay, I'm good. That's enough for later.
Okay,
so I wouldn't ration out let me do 4.5 nuggets now.
You would buy these nuggets, nuggets, and then for the whole day, ration out a 20 piece.
Yeah, just munch on them.
And that would be breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Essentially.
Or whatever I get. I wouldn't get crazy and buy a whole Big Mac meal, because that's a little pricey. So I might just buy a $1 sandwich.
So essentially, how long were you homeless?
Well, I stayed with my card at the gas station and we switched because I was worried somebody would complain. So we'd go across the street to the Checkers and hang out in that parking lot and sleep or whatever. And that lasted maybe 2.5 weeks because I got a job. And I just needed to work that job so I could save up for us to get money for a motel. So my daughter's grandmother would watch her as long as I gave her something. I gave her gas money or little things. You still got this whatever from the house. Can I have it? Yeah, you can have it. Can you watch Mariah? So did you remember that necklace, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you can have it. And so it'd be little things like that. So she would watch her. And then when I was finally able to get food stamps, then I would just buy her groceries. But she watched her while I started working as a vet tech. And then I worked, and the owner agreed to give me the first week, because you get paid every 2 weeks. So she agreed to give me the first week, and I got us this rundown motel. So we stayed in a motel, and that's where we stayed for a while.
How long?
Embarrassing as that is, maybe 4 months. It was a prostitute, drug dealer. Like, I mean, my daughter was not allowed to touch the blankets. Like, she wasn't very mobile anyway at that age. So she was just like laying on her blankets. And then.
So for 4 months, you were essentially didn't have a place to live.
No.
You were in a hotel.
Yeah.
Now, were you able to go to school?
On the east side of Atlanta.
Were you going to school still? Or
no,
I was just working, just trying to
No, this
keep a roof over your head.
That's what I was focusing on. And
really?
That's why my mentor stopped talking to me, because I flaked out of my med school interview. And I called him up the day before, and I said, I'm not going to go. And he was like, why? What's going on? And that's what I told him. I'm in a bad situation. You know, I had a baby. And he was like, I heard something, because my dad was really good friends. He was an ENT. And my dad was really good friends with my primary care, who is best friends with my ENT.
Oh,
and
wow. Wow.
Yeah, so my dad was always into the medical field.
Okay.
Always. And so he's like, I heard something. And he was like, I'm just really disappointed. And he was like, you would have been an amazing candidate. You would have been a great doctor. And I was like, yeah. And so I was just, he didn't return any other phone call after that. Because later in life, not later in life, like maybe a couple months later, I called him just to kind of give him an update, because I didn't know if he, I wasn't sure like that I wanted to give up on everything. And he never returned my phone call.
So at this point, have you ever spoke to him ever again?
No, I've never talked to my ENT again. Never talked to him again. He just completely he didn't want nothing to do with me.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I think
because I was really good friends with the nurse practitioner that was there.
That would just be really great, to say.
Well, he knows now, because my dad bragged about it.
Oh, okay.
He still goes to that doctor for his primary doc. Mm-hmm. He still sees him whenever he needs anything. And so that's when he told him he knows all about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but my dad brags. He's like, yeah, he tell him, look at her now, she's this. And so he should, tell him more. The school really missed out on an excellent doctor. And then I'm just like, when he tells me these stories, I'm like, yeah, Dad, they sure did.
That's right.
They sure did.
Right. Yeah, that's right. So... Okay, so walk me through what happened after. So 4 months you were in the hotel. So
I got WIC.
What happened then?
Breast milk stopped, got WIC.
Okay.
That was how I fed her. That's how I fed myself. I had the rice that they had, and then applesauce and all that kind of stuff. And I was being a vet tech.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't making any money. I wasn't making real money. And I think at the time, I was even still trading under an assistant, because I didn't have the certification that she wanted. I was only making about $8.75 an hour. And so...
Wow.
And I couldn't even go to work all days, because I couldn't find somebody to watch my daughter.
Oh.
And so... Yeah, it's real bad. I had set it up because the doc would never come to a certain area of the vet. Like, she would say where, like, the clinic, rooms are and stuff, but back where, like, the dogs and everything is, she wouldn't come. So I got real close from a coworker, and I would bring my daughter on certain days when I couldn't find anybody to watch her. And so we would just kind of, like, do that, and she would sit in her car seat, and we just do shifts. So as bad as that was, but at
least you were able to bring her.
Because it's never like, it's not like super busy.
Money.
Yeah, it wasn't super busy, so it wasn't like, I was, generally, if I wasn't in her face, then my friend was.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was either me or her, and so that's just what we did. And then some days, her mom would watch her for me.
Okay.
So.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Yeah. So it was fine as long as no one from my regular life
mm-hmm.
knew. Like,
So you were still trying to keep that from...
I just stopped talking to them.
Because you didn't really want them to know what was going on.
To them. My bridesmaids, they're like, we had lost contact for like 3 years. I'm like,
and they had no idea.
No, I didn't. I didn't give anybody a phone call of, hey, how you doing? Till I got that dental school acceptance.
Wow.
I hadn't talked to my friends for a long time.
So you got the dental school acceptance from the hotel?
No. It's a long drawn out path. So I stayed in the motel for